listening to Her Profit Era, the podcast for founders who want a business that actually works, a business that's profitable, predictable, and pays them well. I'm Cindy Kumar, a CPA, a fractional CFO from Abbotsford, BC, Canada. I'm the person founders call when they're tired of high revenue months with no money left over. I started this podcast because too many founders were chasing sales while their margins, cash flow, and bank accounts told a completely different story. I believe profit and money in the bank is a standard, not a bonus, and that every founder deserves clarity around their numbers. Each week, you'll get real financial strategy you can actually use and honest conversations with founders and industry experts about what it really takes to build a business that lasts. At 21, Jana was told her pain was all in her head, but it wasn't. What started as mild digestive issues spiraled into headaches, joint pain, and pelvic floor dysfunction that took over every part of her life. Test after test, doctor after doctor, and still no answers. Most people would have just accepted it, but Jana didn't. She became her own advocate. She studied, she experimented, she connected dots no doctor ever had done for her. And through that process, she built a roadmap that took her from her 11 daily medications to really thriving in her 50s with more energy, vitality, and clarity than she ever had in her 20s. Today, Jana helps women around the world unlearn the belief that health is hard. She teaches the true foundations of the body in a way no one else does. Simple, science-rooted, and unbelievably clear. She's not a physical therapist, not a doctor, not a naturopath. She's a woman who had to figure it out herself, which is why she can explain it in a way that actually makes sense. She wants her community to leave with curiosity, hope, and a practical pathway to start improving their health in just minutes a day. Whether she's opening a conference, speaking to her community, energizing a room of entrepreneurs, or hosting a retreat session, her role has always been the same. She wants to activate her audience and her community. Jana busts myths, she dismantles outdated beliefs, she reframes how people understand their bodies. Talking to her always creates aha moments where complex systems suddenly click. They're usable, relatable, and instantly applicable. And that is why I have Jana as a guest today, really to talk about the importance of strengthening your pelvic floor and understanding how the cooch ball works. So let's get into it. Hi, Jana. Thanks so much for joining me on Her Profit Era today.
Cindy, I'm so excited to be here. Before we hit record, we were talking about the few times that we actually saw each other in person and the curiosity that you had about some of the work that I do. So I'm really excited to have this conversation today.
Me too. I feel like I've seen like your content, I've seen your presentations like at Rich Girl Orlando and then at New York, and it's like wanted to have this conversation for so long, but I feel like just the timing of everything too.
Well, it's the perfect time, right?
Could you share like a little bit about yourself, how you got into like the Cooch Ball and all like the health services and like products that you provide?
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, my story literally starts when I was 17. I'm 52 now. So it's been like the trajectory of my life literally changed when I was 17, and I had no idea that that was going to happen. But farm
Wow.
girl from Saskatchewan, right? My dad would always have like a roll of Tums antacids within an arm's reach of him because he had, as a farmer, he had lots of stress in his life. And so I just thought I had a stomach like my dad. That's what my doctor said. You have a stomach like your dad. You're a high achiever. And so you're going to have headaches. You're going to have stomach aches. And so he gave me a prescription that I thought I would fill. And in 2 weeks, my stomach ache would be gone. Well, fast forward 4 years, I'm finishing up my business degree, my undergraduate business degree, and I'm now on 11 medications, not one, but
Wow.
11. And I got really good. And I think as women, we're really good at this. We can put on this very strong
Mhm.
out, exterior and be like,
Yeah.
no, everything's good. I'm good. Right. And inside, I was not good. I was not good at all. And so I felt like I was leading this double life where
Mhm.
even my then, fiance, we were newly engaged. I don't really think he even knew like the depth of the pain, because by that time it wasn't just stomach pain anymore. I had chronic headaches. I
Oh
had
no.
extreme joint pain. I felt like I was an elderly woman at 21. And one of the most curious parts of where my body or my health disintegrated was in my pelvic floor. So at 21 years old, anytime I would cough, sneeze, laugh, sing, I was peeing my pants. And I think as women, we grow up thinking there are going to be times in our lives where that's going to happen. And,
Right.
maybe after we've had a baby or when we're in that phase of life called menopause, which I was neither. And I really started to wonder what was the rest of my life going to be like. And so I was really excited to go to my next doctor's appointment because the plan was come in, we'll figure out kind of the next 6 months. Will we stay here in Saskatoon? Will we send you, to
Mhm.
Toronto or Vancouver for some additional testing? And so I went in with this glimmer of hope, and my doctor sat across the desk from me in her office, and she said, very matter of factly, opened my file, and she said, Jana, we believe the pain is in your head and you're seeking attention. And she closed
Oh
my
my
file
gosh.
and she said, have a nice life. And out of her office, yeah, Cindy, out, she walked out. And I remember sitting there and thinking, can I get to my vehicle before I burst into tears? And I did. And I just wept. When I got to my car, I wept because, I was looking at, I mean, there's a wedding band here now, but there was just the engagement ring then, and it was sparkling in the sun. And I thought to myself, why? Like, what am I
Yeah.
doing? Like, I want to be a mom. I love this man so much. Why would I give him a life where, like, I couldn't even get out of bed in the morning? How could I possibly conceive, carry, deliver, and raise a baby? And so my life felt like it was really falling apart, and
Mhm.
went through kind of a dark night of the soul. I was working in a corporate job at that point. Really, as growing up in an entrepreneurial family, really did want my own business one day, but thought that dream was even non existent. So fast forward 6 months, I'm in line at Safeway. I'm looking at the magazine rack, and there's a
Yeah.
magazine with Madonna on the cover, and it has the word Pilates on it. I buy the magazine for some reason, and I go and I read this article about Pilates. The next week, I find myself in a Pilates mat class. And I should say that I was teaching fitness to pay for my tuition in business school. So I was teaching
Wow.
back then, I was teaching cycle classes and old school step classes and the Reebok slide. But I'd never done Pilates, and it looked in the magazine, it looked really easy. It looked like yoga. And I made a big judgment that day, and I shouldn't have, because that first class, I couldn't even breathe properly. Like, I was using my peripheral vision and watching people beside me, and they sounded so calm, and their bellies were rising, and I was like stuck. And then, like, this feeling of almost like I couldn't get air in, like the suffocating feeling. I stayed for the whole class because my
Wow.
ego would have been too bruised if I would have got up and left. So my instructor approached me after class, and she just wrapped her arms around me, and she just said to me, come back on Thursday. So I came
Oh,
back on Thursday, and 16 weeks after that first class, so 4 months after my first class, and now we're talking 4.5 years on all these medications. I was off all my meds.
oh wow.
My incontinence was fixed, healed. My joints didn't hurt. I slept through the night. I wasn't getting up with banging headaches. And I was just like in this space of what actually happened here in these 4 months? Like, what did my body do? What did my body need that it didn't have for the last 4 years? And I realized there was a moment, and I still get goosebumps when I think about this moment, because I realized that I had given out or up all of I put my healing in someone else's hands, and I
Right.
forgot that my body, your body, our bodies are so brilliantly designed that they're meant to heal, but they need the right environment. And when they don't have the right, it's like a plant. If you had, maybe a cactus is the exception, but if you had a plant, a house plant, and you went traveling for 5 months and you came back and nobody checked on it, you kept your blinds drawn so it didn't have sunlight, it didn't get water, would that plant be flourishing? Of course not, right? It's
No.
just like our body. We do need sunlight and water. We need more than that. But that's what I felt like Pilates gave me. When I learned how to breathe properly, I got out of, and we can touch on this more later, but our nervous system, and as you know, as entrepreneurs, or as entrepreneur hopefuls, or maybe you have your full-time job and then you got your side hustle which you're hoping to
Yeah.
make your full-time gig eventually. Our nervous system gets so conditioned to be on guard, right? That fight, flight,
Right.
freeze, the sympathetic. And I truly believe that my body was so exhausted from the pain that my posture was
Mhm.
showing that exhaustion. I didn't breathe deeply. So my body just believed for 4.5 years there was this perpetual saber-toothed tiger chasing me every single day. Well, what do you think is going to happen? It is going, my stress hormones are going to be through the roof. Of course, I'm not going
Right.
to sleep well. I'm not going to be absorbing food like I should. I wasn't peeing and pooping like I should. So that really is what, and then that shifted everything. I left my corporate job, got certified in Pilates, became a master instructor, started teaching out of my home as a hobby while I
Wow.
decided to build my own human resource consulting firm. I was like, I'm not going to work for one. I'll just create my own. Never thinking that it was going to be more than just Pilates classes with my friends in my basement once our boys went to bed. And, 18 months after that, I was opening my first Pilates studio. 5 years after that, I was expanding to a 9,000 square foot facility, grew that business from 2015 to 2022 to a team of
Wow.
60 clinicians. So added on, when the clinic came in, the vision really was creating a safe, positive space where Pilates as the movement therapy worked with chiropractors and naturopathic doctors, osteopaths. We had Reiki, reflexology, massage therapy, physical therapy, mental health, nutrition. So
That's
all these
amazing.
beautiful souls, right, under one
Right.
roof that believed like I did that we don't just need one thing. We don't just need siloed healthcare. We need many people at different times in our life. And so that really for me was like the culmination of my learning, because I got to be like the quarterback of these integrated teams that, tens of thousands of people every month would walk through our doors feeling like they hadn't been heard, or they couldn't, they've had pain in their back for 10 years and they
Right.
just wanted to give up, right? We became that place that could remind them about the healing power, because it was born out of my pain, that business. And so 2022 I sold that business, took my show on the road, moved our family from Saskatoon to Mexico, and
Wow.
now everything I do in women's health, including creating the cooch ball and now launching the scooch ball, her little sister, and my book and more speaking. So that's really kind of the path of my pain. And I'm so grateful every single day. I thank God for that pain, because had I not experienced it, who knows where my life would be right now. And now I can tell you at 52, I am like exponentially more healthy and more happy than I was at 21.
You are so inspiring. Like, if anyone
Oh,
else heard that from the doctor, like, they would just spiral and be like,
yeah.
what's the point of like even trying Pilates or doing anything?
Yeah. Yeah. And and I did. I did have my woe is me moment. I was very angry at the world. And then there was this moment where it was like, well, if I don't do anything, this will just continue to be a downhill slide. Like, how can
Right.
it not be? So it just became like that. Let's see what happens. So yeah, thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah, that's like so inspiring. And then how did you get into like the cooch ball and like the
Yeah.
pelvic floor kind of
Yeah.
education?
So
I
fast
have one right
forward.
here too.
Yay. Awesome. Okay. Well, we'll make sure we have links, right? So that was that was about 20 years in the making. So remember peeing my pants at 21. Fast forward, I'm at a Pilates conference in Phoenix, and I'm listening to a urogynecologist present his latest research on pelvic floor health. And his job was to do pelvic floor surgery. So he would get women in his surgery room. He would do these mesh pinups. And send women on their way. And what he started noticing was the same women were coming back for the same surgery 2 and 3 years after the initial
Wow.
surgery. And it created a curiosity. And so he started asking his colleagues, like, is anybody else noticing this? The response to him was, yes, Bruce, do your job. You're the surgeon, do the surgery, and then goodbye. Then do the next surgery. And that didn't really sit well with him. He tells the story like, he said, but these are muscles. And
Yeah.
muscles need to be like, it's not like it's this enigma where we don't know what the pelvic floor is. The pelvic floor is literally 14 muscles. And I actually have my pelvis right here. Well, not my
Oh,
pelvis,
wow.
but my pelvis model, right? So this is our body, right? These are our hips. If you put your hands on your hips, you're holding your pelvis, the bones of the pelvis. And then we have these 14 muscles, 3 layers that make up our pelvic floor. Men have a pelvic floor too. That's not just something that women have. And so he intrigued me during that presentation because his research showed that 90% of pelvic floor dysfunction was not a medical issue, it was a fitness issue. It was poor breathing, it
Mhm.
was less than optimal posture, and it was a lack of blood flow to those 14 muscles. And it's almost, honestly, Cindy, it was like the heavens opened up because I was like, what? Wait a minute. Because I did have a pelvic floor therapist on my team, and I just thought that pelvic floor therapy was the only way to heal the pelvic floor. And as I was listening, I was like, what? Do you
Yeah.
mean as a Pilates instructor, I can literally help 9 out of 10 women? Imagine if I worked alongside that pelvic floor therapist on my team, how we could heal women. And then, so I was like, okay, in a Pilates class, I can help women learn how to breathe better. I can learn them how to sit and stand better. But how do I teach them? How do I get blood flow to the pelvic
Mhm.
floor in a classroom setting where, pelvic floor physical therapy is usually internal, vaginally, and rectally? Um,
Right.
so I went home. Our boys were much younger, and I was straddling foam rollers, I was sitting on their mini basketballs and their floor hockey balls. And the way I explain it is kind of like I was Goldilocks and I was looking for the just right porridge. Some of the
Yeah.
porridge was way too hot, really too hard, triggered the sympathetic nervous system. Some of the porridge was like meh, like it didn't really do anything. So I was like, I need to create something because I knew in my mind the sensation that I wanted to feel when I came off the ball, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I decided as an entrepreneur to
Yeah.
solve the problem that needed to be solved. And so I found, and it looks like a regular playground ball. So I get people asking me all the
Yeah.
time, like, can I just go to a department store and get a ball? And I'm like, well, if maybe for your cooch, but I'm not gonna trust my cooch to any old ball from a
Yeah.
department store. So what we did is we took the bladder of the ball and we wrapped a nylon thread in a really unique pattern around the bladder. Then we put the blue outer coating on it, and that really was so that when the weight of an adult is on it, the 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 conversation that gets started between the body and the ball is
Yeah.
one that doesn't trigger sympathetic but still melts through these fascial restrictions. And we'll talk
Wow.
more about fascia, but fascia really is like a boa constrictor snake. It's like a spider web type tissue in our body, throughout our whole body, from the bottom of our toes to the top of our head. And on those days, ladies, where we have been in front of our computer, maybe it is
Mhm.
like tax season or it's end of the quarter, whatever we're doing, we're business planning, and we shut our computer and we have those low grade headaches at our brow line or at our hairline. That usually is fascia. So fascia, when it's not healthy, when it's over caffeinated or when we're dehydrated or we've had poor posture, it's almost like putting on a onesie that's two sizes too small. Everything in our
Wow.
body gets restricted. So that headache is actually like us putting on a child-sized swim cap, or sometimes you wear a ball cap too tight and you get that
Yeah.
headache. That's what that fascia does, and it's because we've been focusing so hard on our computers that the fascia just starts to follow our posture and it sticks. And so that's what I wanted. The ball had to be enough oomph to melt those fascial restrictions, but not too much that it triggered the fight, flight, freeze, cortisol nervous system response. So I feel like I created the porridge just right.
How often should you be sitting on like the cooch ball and like,
Yeah. So the practice is really simple. We keep it a little bit squishy again for that nervous system, but the goal is that you want to work up to 3 minutes a day. That's why it's so simple. And that's why I think sometimes this little tool gets totally overshadowed by
yeah,
like there's a service out there that a lot of med spas have. It's called the Emsella. Maybe you've heard of it. It's
yeah,
this, it's a chair that you sit on, or you sit on it, and it creates, like, I think it's like 2,000 pelvic floor contractions in like a minute. Here's the problem I have with that. First of all, it's ridiculously expensive, and it might help in the short term because it does like wake those muscles up. But
yeah,
what those solutions don't do is, because you're not an active participant, like when you're on this ball and the training videos that come with it, you are like, it's almost like a meditation, right? Like you go within. I've had so many business ideas drop in when I've been on my cooch ball, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But when you're sitting on this and melting through those fascial restrictions, what I call it is, you are an active participant. So you, not a machine, is actually changing your body. And that actually is, you have different synapses. New synapses are firing in your brain. New neural pathways are being developed because you are in charge, not some machine. So that's why, what I'll say, women will always ask me, like, well, how long will it take before I feel a difference, Jana?
that was
And
my next question.
okay, all right. Well, you know what? Some women will feel a difference after one. Like they'll come off the ball and they'll be like, oh my gosh, it feels like the Grand Canyon is between my legs, right? For some,
Right.
it takes 7 days. But what I usually say is, gift yourself a 30-day cooch ball experience where you are consistent every single day for 30 days. And whether your pain point is getting up at night multiple times to go pee, pain during intercourse, bloating, constipation, this might
Yeah.
be a good time to talk about some of that. Because I think sometimes women, I've heard, and I don't think, I know, because they'll say to me, oh my God, I'm so glad I don't need that yet because I don't pee my pants.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And incontinence is not the only pelvic floor dysfunction symptom that someone might have. So, I mean, I started listing a few of them: bloating through the belly,
Right.
constipation is a pelvic floor issue, low grade back pain, chronically tight hips, cold, tingly feet. Those are
Wow.
some maybe out of the box things that you wouldn't connect the dot back to a too tight pelvic floor, but that's what actually happens. So when you sit on the ball and you start your breath work, and we go through the breath work on the videos, you really do wake up your pelvic floor. Because here's what's happening: most women don't realize that our core, well, let me ask you this, Cindy, and I might lead the witness a little bit here, but
Yeah.
when, if I were to say to you, you know what, I really want to strengthen my core, what do you think of right away? I'm going to go to the gym and do what?
Like sit
Yeah,
ups, ab workouts,
yeah.
do a plank.
Exactly, exactly. But here's the reality: is our core, the abdominals are just part of our core. So when you eat an apple, you have the core left, right? It's the cylinder, the
Right.
top and the bottom. So our pelvic floor is the floor of our core. Our diaphragm, and I'm just going to shift my camera here, but our diaphragm, it's this big muscle. It's a big breathing muscle. It sits in the crust of our rib cage like an open umbrella. When you see a newborn baby breathing and their belly is rising and falling,
Yeah.
that is the most pure example of a human being that is breathing with their main breathing muscle, their diaphragm. Then we have the abdominals that make the cylinder, so the six pack in front. We have two sets of obliques that side bend us and twist us.
Yeah.
Deepest to that, we have our internal waist trainer. We don't need to buy a waist trainer to put on because we have one in our bodies, right? And then we have these two little muscles on either side of our spine that are like zippers, called the multifidi. And that is our core. Like, it's all those muscles working together that give us core strength. So
Right.
here's the other interesting thing: is that the ceiling aka the diaphragm, and the floor, your pelvic floor, they work as a team. So here's the problem. As we become teenagers and young women and, go through those phases of our life, society has conditioned us to want to suck our belly in, try and be as
Hmm.
narrow as we can, right?
Right.
The shoes we wear. So even a running shoe has a bit of a decline to it. The shoes we wear, the fashion we wear, I love myself a good pencil skirt and some nice pumps, right? But anything that takes space away from in and around the waistband, the contents of our core, what's inside of there, the organs, the blood, the lymph, the fascia, nerves, they have to go somewhere, right? Like when you take
Right.
space away, those contents there have to either go one of two ways, up or down.
No.
And so over time, we actually stop using our diaphragm as the main breathing muscle. And our
Wow.
body, like I said, is so brilliantly designed that we start breathing with our neck. And I think, like in the world of entrepreneurship, we can probably think of an example like every single day where we get that email or we're waiting for that call from the bank, or we're like where we get a little jacked up with our nervous system. Automatically our diaphragm is out of the picture. It's not working because we shift our breathing into these stress muscles, the scalenes and the sternocleidomastoids. So we start breathing with our neck muscles that already have a job to hold our head up on our spine. Now
Yeah.
the body's like, what's wrong? Where's the danger? She's not breathing, right? And so
Yeah.
remember I told you earlier, the pelvic floor and the diaphragm work as a team. So when the pelvic or when the diaphragm stops working, when we start breathing with our neck, the pelvic floor is also going to go on a vacation because the pelvic floor is looking up at her upstairs neighbor, the diaphragm, and doesn't see any movement. So the pelvic floor
Mhm.
is like, oh, she must be gone too. Well, I'm gonna take a little break, and over time we get this dysfunction. And so there was a research study done that I like to share that just shows how we unconsciously hold tension in our pelvic floor. There was a group of women that were watching, I'm not going to say like a blood and gore movie, like not a horror show,
Yeah.
but a scary show, right?
Right.
And the researchers had sensors on their body and they were measuring where in the body were these women receiving the stress from what they were watching. Was it their heart? Did their heart rate increase? Did they kind of get jacked up in their neck? Were they making
Mhm.
fists, right? What did they do? Well, the first place in their body to respond to the fear was their pelvic floor muscles.
Wow.
And the pelvic floor was, long after the movie was done, the pelvic floor was still responding to that fear. So we don't even know, we have those, we might have friends or family members that we refer to lovingly as like, oh, she's such a tight ass, right? But
Yeah.
literally that's what's happening in our body is that we are clenching, not because our, the rectum and the anus, that's all part of the pelvic floor complex. When we are holding and protecting, even if it's unconscious, we're bringing in that tension, and tension does not equal strength. And that's why, because I know this is one of your questions, that's why Kegels for most women are the worst thing that they could be doing, because that pelvic floor is already under high amounts of stress and tension. So if you
Yeah.
imagine your pelvic floor like an elevator in a hotel, we want our elevator to be able to know how to get to the lobby and how to chill out in the lobby. And then, when required, we want the elevator to be able to go to the first, second, third, fourth, fifth floor. Our pelvic floor is exactly like that. But here's the problem: most women think their elevator is at the lobby, but it's
Yeah.
probably hanging out on the second floor. So now we're Kegeling and we're putting in more and more and more tension, thinking that because most Kegels are taught like stop the flow of urine, start the flow of urine, or clench or release. There's all those viral videos, squeeze, 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 that
Yeah.
actually make me cringe. So now, that elevator that was the lobby on the second floor, you've been Kegeling now every day for another year. Now your
Wow.
lobby is actually the third floor. And you're wondering, what, I need to Kegel more because I'm coughing and I'm still peeing. I must not be doing enough. But you're actually completely exacerbating this issue. You actually need the release. And that's what the cooch ball is so good at. It's like that massage therapist that is allowing the body to know what the true lobby feels like. Does that make sense?
That does, yeah.
Yeah. So that's, you know what, it's so yeah, again, really easy. It's a 3-minute practice. The only rule is if your breath becomes erratic or if you start holding your breath, you come off your ball. And the other thing that's important to know is, and I don't know what your first experience was, and we can chat about that if you want to, but
Yeah.
there for some women, there is the ouch factor. And I let them know that sometimes when you sit on this ball, it is like, what is happening here? There is
Yeah.
a lot, the ouch factor can be quite elevated. And what the ouch factor is, it's inversely related to the health of those tissues. So if the health of the tissues is very low, there's not a lot of blood flow, there's a lot of tension, and it feels like a desert, your ouch
Yeah.
factor is going to go through the roof. But here's the beautiful thing: as you do this every day and you're drinking your water, you're going to start to notice you have some new, maybe you're standing a little bit differently, that back pain's going away, the ouch factor is going to decrease. And, before, because I want to hear what your first experience was, I want to let women, I want to remind everyone that pain, we have become so adverse to pain. We have been conditioned to believe that we want to get out of pain. We want to take this over the counter pain medication
Yeah.
so our headache goes away, so our shoulder stops aching, so we can go and play pickleball or go throw a ball to our dog, right? But the reality is that pain is simply a communication tool from your body. And when we shut that down, imagine if you had, like, a pet or a child that kept saying, wanting your attention, and you kept like, no,
Yeah.
be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. Pretty soon, those barks or those screams are going to get really loud because you haven't been paying attention to it. So the ouch factor is not something that we run from or are fearful of. It simply is a conversation. So tell me, I don't know this story. Tell me what your first experience was like. Was it in Orlando? Was that your first experience?
That was my first experience, but I
Okay.
kind of just brushed it off because I'm like, I don't have kids yet. I'm
Yep.
not going through menopause. Like, I don't really need to prioritize my pelvic floor. And then I saw
Uh-huh.
you in New York again talk about it. I followed you, and then I just got curious. So I'm someone that's struggling with like thyroid, underactive thyroid, and like I want to get off my medication, but the doctor just like, no, we have to stay on this dose. They even increased it at one point. So I'm
Okay.
like dealing with all these health issues. I gained a bunch of weight, and now it's like, okay, I want to go back and like listen to my body. You hear all
Yep.
these stories like similar to yours about people that like start deep breathing, start taking care of themselves, listening to their bodies, and all of a
Yep.
sudden you don't need those medications and
Yep.
things that you really needed. So I feel like that was very eye-opening. And then finally after New York, I'm like, I'm gonna try this like cooch ball. I keep hearing about it like it's a sign. We were even in some like hot seat coaching calls together too. So I'm like, okay, it's a sign. Like I keep seeing Jana everywhere. Like I need to do this. So yeah,
Okay.
like every morning I just have it by like my computer.
Mm-hmm.
So I just sit on it like first thing before I even get into anything. But at the beginning it was like super like painful and uncomfortable. But I was like, I just need to push through. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's like something like before I even sit down, I know I need to grab this ball right away
Yeah.
because it
Oh,
just makes me feel so much better throughout the day.
amazing. Amazing. And so tell me, what have you noticed in your body now that you're, so what is this now? We were in New York in August, September. So we've got like 4 or 5 months under your belt now.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling?
I feel like my skin's doing a lot better. Like I have eczema on my hands. So like it's hard to see, but like my hands swell up and
Okay.
then they just get very itchy and dry.
Mm-hmm.
And like just certain times of the day where I feel like I need to itch. But now that I'm sitting on it, like I don't feel the need to itch. I'm noticing that my skin's getting more clear, more softer, and I haven't experienced that in a really long time.
That's awesome. You know what, let's unpack this a little bit, because you might have
Okay.
some of your listeners being like, wait, she's sitting on the cooch ball and it's helping her eczema. Like, help me
Yeah.
understand the connection
I
there.
remember
And
I was
so,
asking you
yeah,
that too. I'm like, what's the
yes,
connection with the
yes.
skin?
What's happening here? So, the, when you think about the pelvic floor, it is a structure that is very, it's the geographical location is really important because it is halfway between our head and our feet, and it's
Yeah.
in the center of our right and left side. Like it literally is the epicenter of where our torso meets our legs and where the right side of the body meets the left side of the body. Blood flow literally is the one major component when it comes to healing. All right. I'll use my mom as an example. She FaceTimed me a few weeks ago. They winter in Phoenix. And I knew she went golfing, and I said, "Oh, how was your golf round?" She said, "I golfed really good, but you know what? After the second hole, I rolled my ankle off the side of
Oh
the
no.
cart path." But she said I kept playing because I was playing so good, and so I was like, "Oh, let me see your ankle." Well, she turned her, like we were on FaceTime, she turned her
Yeah.
camera around. Cindy, it was like an elephant. I'm like,
Oh my
uh,
gosh.
you're probably gonna, she's like, "Oh, don't worry. I've been icing it." And I'm like, "Mom, who is your daughter?" Right? Your daughter
Yeah.
is like the anti-ice queen. Do not ice it, right? And again, that's an old, and I will,
Yeah.
there's probably people that are going to be like, "I disagree with you," and I respectfully, I'm respectful of everyone's opinions. But here's the thing that I know is that when we ice something, part of our body, we are eliminating the possibility of our blood, which is full of oxygen and nutrition, to go to those amped up, sprained tissues that are asking for help. We are like shutting the front door to that potential healing. That's what we're
Wow.
doing. So, as soon as you're on the cooch ball in this epicenter of circulation from up and down, right to left, you are actually amplifying, like, your immune system is going to be different, your posture is going to be different, your elimination and digestion is going to be different because you are healing one of those. It's kind of like it's well, it is part of your core, but it is a central piece to longevity, vitality, and health. And as soon as we start getting a lack of blood flow. I know you know about the viral video series I did this summer. I called it Death Begins in Your Big Toe. And it was the
Yeah.
connection between the big toe and the pelvic floor. Because as soon as our big toe gets numb, maybe starts getting discolored, we get bunions, plantar fasciitis, hammer toes, all these things. As soon as there's something in our feet, think about that. The feet are like that. This is the stage we perform life on every single day. Do you want a stage that can support your performance? Or do you want a stage that is compromised, right? And that's what happens when we have poor posture and we're not walking in our gait properly. We start getting things like bunions. And I mean, people will be like, "Well, my mom had a bunion and my
Mhm.
grandpa had a bunion. It's hereditary." And
Yeah.
if the world of bunions was a pie, hereditary would be a sliver of that pie. The rest of that pie, why you have the bunion, is because of your lifestyle, how you stand.
Wow.
You might follow your mom's posture. Like I always say, go back and look at old family pictures, like when you're in elementary
Yeah.
school. And if you're standing, and if your mom or dad are standing, or your grandma's standing, look at your feet. Look how they're standing. Look how you're standing. Where are your shoulders? Where are their shoulders?
Right.
Because that's what we follow, right? We follow the habits and patterns of those that are closest to us. And, I went back to an old family picture, and my mom, I used to figure skate too. So we would do like a T push off. So my
Yeah.
mom was standing with her left foot kind of 45 degrees. And I'm standing, and I found about 4 or 5 pictures like that. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this has been a pattern for so
Wow.
long." So, that really is when we can get blood back to the heart to efficiently get reoxygenated. That's important. Then we talk about our lymphatic system. So our lymph system, actually, in a really simple way, is like it's like a filter in a fish tank, or like our body's garbage disposal system. All right. But unlike
Right.
our circulatory system that has our heart pumps our blood, right? The
Right.
lymphatic system doesn't have its own pump. So it's our breathing and movement that we need to move all of this lymph fluid to the areas like in the neck, in the gut, under the armpits, in the groin, behind the knee, these big centers that collect, where these lymph nodes are. And then, of course, they drain in these little valves on the left and right side, just down from the earlobes. And so part of what you also are experiencing is not just the improved blood flow, but now that you are breathing with your diaphragm every day, it literally, Cindy, has up leveled all of these organs. And our body is systems of systems. We are not
Right.
pieces, we're not potato head dolls, right? So
Yeah.
when we can up level our cellular health with movement, with breathing, with this release work, and then all of a sudden you notice, oh, I'm grabbing from my water bottle more, oh,
Yeah.
I'm noticing that I'm getting up from my desk more, like your whole health just up levels. So that's what you are actually, experiencing in your hands, is that these systems are becoming more amplified and working more in your favor.
That's so true. Yeah, I feel like I have more energy. I feel like I'm trusting my intuition, my
Mm.
inner voice now. And it's like you just feel better overall.
Well, and I love that you said that intuition, because we've talked so much during this conversation around like the physical aspect of the pelvic floor, but
Yeah.
there's two other parts that we haven't really touched on that I want to, and one is there's an emotionality to our pelvic floor. We carry a lot of shame and embarrassment, anxiety in the in this beautiful cauldron. And part of that comes from, and I don't know if I've shared this with you before, or if you've heard me say this, but the main nerve in our body that runs from our brain through to the pelvic floor and the genitals, is in a man's body and a woman's body. It's the same. Is called the pudendal nerve, and it's a motor. It's got a big job. It's got two big jobs. It's a motor nerve, so it's an information highway from the brain to the pelvic floor and the genitals, and it's also a sensory nerve. So it is everything from pleasure through to pain we experience via that nerve. Well, if you
Yeah.
were to Google what is the Latin root of the word pudendal, it's an area of shame. And so my first question is, who named it?
Yeah.
Why did you name it that? Who and why? And it's also, there's an amazing book called Power versus Force by Dr. David R. Hawkins. And in that book, he talks about the scale of consciousness, and he ranks emotions based on their frequency and their
Mhm.
energy. And like enlightenment is like the top, that would be Gandhi, Jesus, like, some pretty major people at the top, enlightenment. The
Yeah.
bottom is shame. Shame is the lowest frequency emotion on this planet. So we are all walking around with the nerve to a part of our body that is really important. Sorry, it's getting a little windy, and I thought my light
That's
was going to
okay.
come over. So that's what's happening from an emotional perspective. We're holding a lot of that there. And then the third part, the trifecta, is the energy. Like our sacral chakra, or our sacral energy center, is also located in the pelvic floor. And here's where, as an entrepreneur, this is really important, because I know that we all have gone through moments where we feel like our creative spark is gone. You
Right.
sit down
Yeah.
to maybe write an email sequence, or you're doing something new with a marketing campaign, and you're like, I got nothing. Like there's
Yeah.
no spark at all, right? Then you start
Yeah.
questioning, why am I
And you're
even
kind of
doing
forcing
this?
it too
Yes,
then.
exactly, right? So in that sacral energy center, it's the energy of sensuality and creativity live there. So not only, if a woman chooses to create life like an actual human being, that happens there. But ladies, this is where we also create ideas for our businesses, even like ideas for a new recipe, or ideas for how we want to change our wardrobe. Like all of our
Yeah.
creativity is there in this beautiful part of our body. And when we understand this, and I know that, as you're listening to this podcast, and if you've been following Cindy, I already know, as an entrepreneur, you're probably in the 1% of the 1%, because that's just who she attracts into her world. But when we it's like having a superpower that no one else knows, or a little secret, or like an ace in our back pocket. So the fact that, Cindy is sitting on her cooch ball every morning, she doesn't, in everything else she's talked about that it has given her, it is also ensuring that those muscles, that fascia, that emotion, that energy is being protected. And it doesn't mean that every day is amazing and joyful,
Right.
right? But it means that during the days that are heavy and hard and we're questioning everything we do, it's like compounding interest. We've been putting, value and time and effort into that part of our body so that when those hard, heavy, sticky times come, we don't get locked down. We don't lose our voice. Our pelvic floor is where the creation happens, and then we bring it out, or we gift it to the world through our voice, right? And I think sometimes when the
Right.
pelvic floor is shut down, it feels like the mute button is on. And
So
if you are an
true.
entrepreneur, right, like you are someone's answered prayer. You might not believe that, but you are someone's answered prayer. You are exactly who they've been looking for. The products and services that you've created are going to make their life better. And that's why it is critical that as women founders, women entrepreneurs, that we do everything we can to love on and nourish this vessel, because when it is not, we don't show up like that sparkly soul that, so many people truly are counting on us to be.
That's so true. Yeah, because I feel like I ignored my body for so long until like my thyroid issue showed up.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the body being like, hello,
Yeah.
right? Hi, Cindy. Hi. I need you. Right. And now you're
Right.
listening. Yeah. Amazing. Amazing.
Could you share a little bit about like other products you have as well?
Yeah, for sure. So the the Cooch Ball was born in 2020, and then the Scooch Ball was born after that. And the Scooch Ball came along, and so the Scooch Ball is like the Cooch Ball's little
Wow.
sister. All right. They're so cute together. But what I started learning, and we've talked about feet already, but I started learning that the connectivity between the feet and the pelvic floor, the glutes and the pelvic floor, the jaw and the pelvic floor are so, like, they're just so prominent. So yes, you might not be, peeing your pants when you cough or sneeze, but maybe you have TMJ, or maybe you grind your teeth at night. You wear, like a mouth guard. Maybe you have those low grade headaches. Maybe you have a lot of foot pain and discomfort, or, glute pain, sciatica, those kinds of things. The Cooch Ball wasn't like enough to get deep into those little nooks and crannies. So that's when the Scooch Ball was born. And so you scooch her into, like, under your feet, in through your calves, through the glutes, the shoulders. There's a whole face sequence that you can do with this.
Yeah.
And, the back of the head, there's some acupressure points at the hairline. And so this is like if the Cooch Ball is like, wins the Oscar for the best actress in a lead role, the Scooch Ball is like the best supporting actress at the Oscars, because this little tool completely amplifies what the Cooch Ball does. So it's one thing to make sure the pelvic floor has, the environment with oxygen rich, nutrient rich blood flow. But when you can then work into your, other parts of your body with this, that's when I really believe that you can start to, turn back the hands of time and do what you're trying to do, right? I mean,
Right.
getting off that thyroid medication, that's a beautiful goal. And, being patient and allowing your body to work through that. But if your mind has decided that's going to happen, your body will follow, right?
Right.
That's one thing that I've learned. So I have the Cooch Ball and the Scooch Ball. I have a full, like, membership. So again, I all of the Pilates stuff that I do is online. So in my membership, I call it like an all-inclusive membership. It's like going to an all-inclusive resort, right?
Yeah.
You get all of your Scooch Ball and Cooch Ball stuff. You get all of your workouts. I've also created a really cool mindset coaching app called Orchid. And I named
Oh
it
wow.
Orchid. Yeah, I named it Orchid because orchid is a very wise flower. And I think sometimes as women, we forget the wisdom that we innately have. And so a very good friend of mine she's a tech girly from Salt Lake City. And she, over the past 10 years, way before AI was like the AI that we used, she was working with AI, and she became very intrigued by, she used to sell solar panels, and she
Wow.
she wanted to learn how we harness energy from the sun to like start our dishwasher, right? Like that's when she was
Right.
really young. That's what she was like, how does that happen? And so energy and frequency has been like kind of her curiosity. And so in her company, what she has worked on is, and what Orchid is you can take a 15-second voice sampling. And so what we do is you go into the app, you hit check my vibe, and what pops up is a statement. And it might be like, I am joyfully abundant. And you just keep repeating, I am joyfully abundant. I am joyfully abundant. And Orchid takes your 15-second voice sampling, and
Yeah.
then it's predictive AI. So it's like 80% correct, right? And what I
Right.
know with women, this is what I know in the 30 years of working with women. We can do all the physical things with their body. They can make sure that their food is in check. They can make sure they're sleeping well. But if this and this are not speaking the same language, there are
Yeah.
going to be obstacles to jump over. And so I wanted to have something in my community, in my membership, where women could work on their emotional intelligence, where they could understand that there are expansive emotions like love and peace and joy. And there are restrictive emotions like anger and loneliness and frustration. And that's what Orchid does, is through the voice sampling, it looks at the frequency and it can map your expansive emotions and your restrictive emotions, because your
Oh,
restrictive
wow.
emotions, it's like you can learn a lot from those. It doesn't mean one is good and
Yeah.
one is bad. And then the app gives you like a little bit of a summary, and then you can watch a 3, 6, or 9 minute interactive video with sound that can help you shift your state. So Orchid is in the membership. I decided, this is kind of how things happen in the world of Jana Danielson. 2 years ago, I was taking a supplement called berberine. And, that's GLP-1s and semaglutides were becoming very popular. And
Yeah.
it just was not resonating with me. I was like, no, it doesn't feel right for me. But yet I was intrigued. So I saw an article about this supplement, an ingredient called berberine. And I was like, oh, berberine, they called it Mother Nature's Ozempic. I was like, okay, I'm in,
Yeah.
right? It comes from the berberis tree from Asia. And I was like, good. If it has grown on this planet, I'm in. So I was
Yeah.
taking the supplement, and then I realized, and I was paying good money for it. And then I learned that that supplement was not meeting label claims. So what I
Oh,
thought I was taking was not what I was taking. And I was like, what? How? And then I learned that 80% of berberine supplements on Amazon, none of them were meeting label claims. And so that's when
oh,
I like
wow.
drew my line in the sand, and I was like, this is no good. Lucky for me, I have a very good friend, Sean Wells, and he is a supplement formulator. And I called Sean and I was like, listen, can you help me create a supplement that would help with blood sugar management? Because it's not fat that makes us gain weight, it's actually sugar that makes us gain weight. So could you, and do you know this Mother Nature's Ozempic berberine? He's like, oh yeah, but I got one better. He took, he reverse engineered berberine and came up with the metabolite called dihydroberberine, which is more impactful. You don't have to take as much during the day. So he's like, and I said to him, I also want something that helps with bloating and inflammation. I
Yeah.
want something for my women because they're losing energy about 3 o'clock. We're dragging our butts. And I want something to support hormones and support appetite. And he's like, oh, Jana, that's a big list. I don't know if we can get it all into one capsule. And he came back to me a few weeks later and he's
Yeah.
like, listen, here's what we can do. So I never thought in a million years, right? The farm girl from Saskatchewan would also have, her hat in the supplement ring. And I am a very tiny fish in a very big ocean. But here's
Yeah.
what I can tell you about. So Skinny Vibes, it's an acronym, SKNY, supports healthy blood sugar, ketogenic friendly, natural clean ingredients, youth boosting formula. There's two ways you can take it. Either one dose, base dose is one capsule before the biggest meal of your day, or optimal dose is one capsule before your two biggest meals of the day. And in my body, when I first went on it, it really, really started healing my inflammation. So, and I don't have a scale, but I like my measuring tape, right? And
Yeah.
so in the first 7 weeks, I lost 7 inches of inflammation from my
Wow.
body, right? Which played with my brain, because my brain thought it was fat, but it was actually inflammation that healed through my supplements. So And I was like, there is no way that like we got the additional third party testing. I know very specifically what is in that supplement. And then I have a colon cleanse, a 15-day colon cleanse, because we got to clean out the pipes. It's called poop
Yeah.
vibes. So you do 2 capsules each night for 15 days, and it is an amazing colon cleanse. Um, so that really is that's really my brand. The cooch ball is sold on its own or with the scooch ball as part of a form of movement as medicine called terrain fitness. I have monthly group coaching calls in my membership, and really for me, community is queen. I feel like as women sometimes I think that I don't even know if this was back in the 70s or 80s. There was that picture of that girl called Rosie. She's got the red lips and
Yeah.
she has like her bicep. I believe we got the idea of the independent woman completely wrong. That photo made so many of us believe that being an independent woman meant or means that you got to do it all on your own, that you're
Yeah.
unable to ask for help, that you don't have boundaries because you're available to everybody all the time. And I believe that that is not the case. And I actually wrote about this in my latest book, where an independent woman might sometimes, maybe she's a DIY woman sometimes, maybe she's stuck, maybe she's wandering, but at the end of the day, she is like these petals in a flower. And when she can come to the center as that sacred version of herself, that confident, yeah, we know stuff's going to happen.
Yeah.
But you kind of, where your line in the sand is. That's those are the women that get attracted into my community that feel like they need support in that way. So yeah, that's really how I show up.
You have such like a beautiful story. I feel like I've learned so much too.
Hmm.
You had handed out like samples of the skinny vibes in Orlando with the
Yes.
good ball, but it's been
Yes.
sitting in my cupboard. I haven't even touched it.
Okay. Okay. It's the perfect time. And because it's all natural, and I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, with any supplement, you want to check with your health provider. But because it is all natural, what I've been coached from through Sean is that there should be zero interaction with any kind of medications. But again, little
Yeah.
asterisk, it's always good to check. And it's a great time, right? The holidays, it's a
Right.
great time to try that out.
That's exciting. What's like the best way for our audience to like connect with you or like buy the Cooch Ball or learn more about the products?
Yeah. Well, we'll have your link in the show notes, will we?
Yeah, we will.
Okay, perfect. So you can head down into the show notes. There is a link to get the Cooch Ball there. But I am on most of the socials: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Jana with one N dot Danielson. Please follow me there. And also please note, like, in the morning when I'm standing on my vibration plate, I literally answer every single DM that I get with a voice note. And sometimes it sounds weird because my voice is like on my vibration
Echoing.
plate. But I'm inviting women. Like, I've heard everything. Okay. So if there is something that you just have been holding on to that you're not sure, um, what is this? I don't have all the answers, but sometimes just expressing that, I usually, when I don't have the answers or it's outside of my scope, I've got a
Yeah.
really nice network of lots of really smart people that I could at least make a connection to or refer you to. And Cindy, one thing that I forgot that we really haven't touched on before we leave is I want to remind women in your community that normal and common are two different things. All
Right.
right. So just because we think that after we have a baby, peeing our pants is normal, that's incorrect. It's common for that to happen, but
Yeah.
it's not normal. So I've been spending a lot of time in my community lately really talking about that because when we normalize it, we take away the empowerment to take inspired action to do something about it. And so I just want to remind everyone that these things are common. Everything we talked about today is common. It's not normal. And there is actually a lot that can be done when you find the right people around you who can support you, educate, inspire you, and help you to heal.
That's so helpful because I feel like a lot of times we don't even want to talk about like our health issues or what we're even experiencing. And then we're
No.
on Google trying
Yeah.
to like
Yes.
self-diagnose ourselves.
Yes. Exactly. And where does that end you up, right? You're not
Yeah.
sleeping at night, or you're right. We've been diagnosed with who knows what.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Jana, for your time. I appreciate you being here, educating me and all the listeners.
You are so welcome. Thanks for having me.
If you're a founder who wants real strategy, not noise, and you want someone in your corner helping you build a business that feels aligned, is profitable, and actually supports your life, you can apply for CFO on Call. This is my one-on-one financial partnership for established founders, typically making between $500K to $2 million, who want clarity, who want structure and confidence with their numbers. The link is in the show notes so you can schedule a profit strategy call, or you can DM me CFO on Instagram at @CindyKamar and I'll send over all the details.